Hey everyone, it's Scott Rustroltz here for the June 15th edition of the Listen and Learn podcast. As always, thank you for tuning in. And again, the quick reminder that if you enjoy our videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you're alerted every time we release a video. And we'd be really happy if you'd share the video with any friends or family you think might be interested, try and get word of mouth growing even faster. So with that, I want to focus on three stories of the day, one kind of a political headline and two others that are longer wave structural stories that can be missed in the day-to-day noise. So I want to begin with a disturbing story from the Huffington Post that relates to this really despicable article that they ran yesterday and since deleted. But it just speaks to the crassness of much of our media, and because they deleted it, you have to look at a cached version of it, and I've attached the link in the description to the video, so please check it out. But in the article, they accuse President Trump, as well as his aides, of being traitors to the country. Why are they traitors? A, because he alleges that there's evidence of Russian collusion, which there is none thus far, though yes, colluding with the Russians to swing an election would be a traitorous activity. They also argue that his agenda in terms of the travel ban, pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement, are treasonous in nature. And as a consequence, not only should Trump be impeached, but President Trump, Steve Bannon, Kellyanne Conway, Paul Ryan, Vice President Pence, and Mitch McConnell should be executed for treason. The level of insanity in this Huffington Post piece is almost impossible to comprehend, which is why I tell you to click it and read it. And we saw this yesterday in the wake of the Steve Scalise attack. And I think we have to just say we can have valid political disagreements, but we should not start getting to a point where we accuse someone because of their own policy preferences of being a traitor to the country that should be worthy of death. That should be out of the scope of legitimate political discourse engaged at between enlightened people. And the fact that the Huffington Post would run this kind of crap, focusing on unsubstantiated allegations with Russia saying he should be executed, but then to go further, so everyone involved in his agenda is a traitor to the country, an agenda that the country elected him to do, is so deranged, it's so unhinged. And when you start telling people that opposing the Paris climate deal is something that should be worthy of death, A, that's a way of trying to silence opposition, but B, that can cause an irrational hatred amongst people who read the article. And that's what you're really seeing in parts of the media, in certain pockets of the country, this irrational hatred for the Trump administration and everything they're trying to do. And we need to kind of try and tone things back to some level of sanity, because this is just, it's incomprehensible. But I just wanted to highlight that as a sign of just how insane the media has gone, now essentially calling for all political opposition to the Huffington Post's agenda to be executed. That's what occurs in a Stalinist country, not in a vibrant democracy. So, gearing away from that, let's focus on some real things that matter. And I want to pull up this chart that came out yesterday in the monthly retail sales report. And what you see here is the downward slope is department store sales. So over the past 25 years, department store sales are essentially at an all-time low, running at $12.5 billion per month. Just think, A, of how much inflation there has been over the past 25 years. And the fact that sales are still, even considering all the inflation, lower than back then shows how much less volume is going through department stores. On the other hand, you have online, and that's the upward sloping line, no surprise, which has just surpassed $50 billion per sales each and every month. And so you just have this massive secular shift going on in this country. And you probably purchase things online and go to department stores less. Over half of the country has an Amazon Prime account. This is a tremendous secular shift. And that's great. It's innovative. It's brought costs down. It's changed the way we can shop. It's made prices more transparent. These are all great things. It's creative destruction. And here you see the everyday winner and loser. And we all know that online is winning, but I think this is really it shows just how much it is. But with that has real impact, and that takes me to this chart, which is of employment in the retail sector. So again, you can see there's a downward trending line. That's employees at department stores. So that was that has started to come down in line with sales, which is logical. If they're making less money, they have to hire fewer people. So you've gone from 1.75 million to 1.25 million. So 500,000 people over the past 17 years on net have been laid off by department stores. But you still have 1.25 million people who work for them. Overall, though, retail employment is at an all-time high, basically, at nearly 16 million. And you have to think that the pain is not just being felt at the department stores. They felt it the most. And there will always be some retailers. No one disputes that. But you have to ask, 15 years from now, would you bet more or less Americans will be employed by retail than there is today? My bet would be less. But you're looking at a sector that essentially employs as many people as the manufacturing sector does. It's a massive employers in this country that face a secular downshift. And I think as we've seen from the decline of American manufacturing, there have been real losers from that. Different regions of this country, towns that have been decimated. And it's foolhardy to say that there will also not be regions that are losers under the secular shift away from retail. Now, this creates tremendous opportunity. Just the amount of logistics employment we're going to need from increased warehouses, computer coding, the ability online to create your own stores and sell your products to the entire country rather than just locally. So there are a lot of potential here. But within this net secular shift that is a net positive to the country, there's gross gains and gross losses. And there are a lot of people who are going to feel this gross loss. We need to be cognizant of that as we start thinking about policy. And that's why I think it's been good that the president today and this entire week has been focusing on apprenticeships, job retraining, improving the workforce, the quality of the workforce, creating people who are in industries that face decline, an opportunity to train for an ascendant industry. Because as you see these technological shifts, which are really reaching peak points, I think as shown by these two charts, there's going to be a lot of people who are displaced. And jobs bring dignity. We need to keep people employed. We need to help retrain people, make them productive members of society. And I think we've seen how much the decline in manufacturing has hit parts of the country. Retail has the potential to be equally, if not even more so, disruptive. And it's just a reminder of how much we need to ensure we continue to be training new Americans as they graduate high school and college, as well as existing Americans in the labor force to ensure that they can continue to be productive employees up until their retirement. So it's just something that I think is quite interesting. Finally, I want to talk, as we're heading into Father's Day, on some really sobering charts. The first one, and that's out-of-wedlock births. You've probably seen a fair bit of this one, which is the out-of-wedlock birth in the African-American community, which has continued to soar. We've gone from 40% in 1970 to 70% today. So even as we've made all of this progress on the civil rights front, on equality front, this is an area where the African-American community has actually probably gone backwards in the past 45 years. And it's a real problem. There's no stronger correlation to poverty than to being a single parent. And that's not to speak ill of single parents. It's just how difficult it is to hold a job while maintaining all the responsibilities of raising a kid by yourself. It's a really near impossible task. And that's why it's so important to ensure people are getting married before they have kids, to fix the welfare system so that you're not punishing people for getting married and disincentivizing it by losing government assistance, because that just creates permanent poverty, and we want a welfare system that helps push people out of poverty. But one problem we have as a country is we focus too much on this and not realizing that it's a non-racial problem. If you look at this next chart, you'll see that overall the out-of-wedlock birth rate has gone from 10% in 1970 to over 40% today. It's risen in every community, Hispanic, white, African American, and this is a real national epidemic. We need to teach responsibility. Fatherhood does not end at conception. If we want to bring down poverty over the long term, we have to decrease this. If we want to ensure that kids are brought up with a sense of responsibility and have father figures in their lives to teach what it is to be a man, you need to have a father in the house. So we need to work as a government to ensure, that we're not disincentivizing marriage through our welfare programs, and as well as a culture, we need to stand up and saying that this is not appropriate behavior. If you have a kid, you need to be a father, and hopefully this Father Day is a day where we resolve as a nation to push this and to really say, no, we are not going to let this crisis, this silent crisis, continue to be silent any longer. So with that, wish all the fathers very happy Father's Day this weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.